So come here real quick. I want to show you something. When you are potentially a liar and the Social Security Administration realizes it, what happens is the following. They will send out one of these types of forms. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, but these are the ones that usually pop up that essentially allow the SSA to show that you are not a very genuine person. You are a disingenuous person. Let's get into this real quick so that basically you understand where they're coming from. Social Security Administration gets, the ability to send out checks to people, retirement benefits, disability benefits, SSI benefits, all kinds of benefits, all kinds of stuff. Now, when they do this, they sometimes say, hey, wait a minute, is this person actually eligible for those benefits? Well, we're going to be going through those forms that they send out first to figure out if you are in fact a liar. Sometimes they won't send out any forms and they will send an investigator to follow you around, talk to the business owners that basically sell you stuff, talk to your family members, talk to the person who rents you an apartment. The first form that they do send out usually, among other forms, is called the SSA 827. This form basically is a HIPAA release document that has been set up by the federal government to allow the SSA to go and buy records from other groups, usually medical, so that they can buy information about you, because they need to go ahead and build a claim as to whether or not you are a liar or a genuinely disabled or genuinely retired or elderly person, okay? Might be a widow's benefits claim, might be an adult disabled child claim, any one of those types of claims through the Social Security Administration. So 827. 827 is very simple, is a HIPAA. They get to go ahead and purchase your records from other groups. This gives them the okay. Remember, SSI people have less rights when it comes to financial data because obviously it is a poverty-based program. Now, the next form that they usually send out, or is among the forms that they'll send out, is the SSA 454. Oh, let me give you the real full name of the SSA 827. We all in the industry, we call them by their numbers. It is the authorization to disclose information to the Social Security Administration. It's a HIPAA form. That's what it is. That's what it does. Okay. Now, this next form is the SSA 454BK. It is the Continuing Disability Review Report. Some of you know it as the long form, CDR form. What it does is it basically allows the SSA to collect information to begin their processing of what is called a CDR. A CDR is a continuing disability review. It's where they look to see if you are still disabled under the rules and regulations and put you through what's called the 8-step sequential process. This document right here gives them the initial information to figure out if you would pass or fail the 8-step sequential process. Real quick, Christy Hughes, thank you for the $2 donation. That's absolutely amazing. She said, you rock. Well, I really super appreciate it. And basically for all the other individuals with eyesight limitations, blindness, things like that, we're going to do a big shout out for Christy there. So excellent. With that said, I want you guys to go ahead and see, it's interesting too, because when it comes to variations, I've noticed this too, and this is something just from the practice of law in this field. I had a claimant, I think it was about 6 to 8 months ago, where basically the SSA sent the individual to an eye doctor. And the eye doctor came back, and it was their doctor, it was the SSA's doctor, and said, hey, she's pretty much blind at this point. It is what it is. She's pretty much blind. And so then the SSA said, but this is very different than the report that we received, a year before that as to her eyesight. And it turned out that her eyesight had gotten so much worse so quickly that they didn't believe their own doctor, their own CEME, their consultative examination medical expert. So they then sent her back to that same doctor and said, can you do the tests again? And they did the tests again. And it turned out her eyesight was even worse than they had originally had at that CEME doctor. So the thing is, I have noticed the SSA, especially when it comes to like anxiety, depression, blindness, stuff like that, their ears get perked up and they do more aggressive review with the data. Okay, I have noticed that quite a bit. All right, now let's go back to this SSA 454. This is when you already have benefits, and they basically are going to see if you should still receive them as to whether or not you are in fact disabled. It goes through stuff like where you're living, Goes through stuff of where you're working, what are your current impairments, any new impairments, what's your medication, any side effect stuff, blah, blah, blah. It goes through all of that inside this form, because what they're trying to do is figure out if you are still disabled at the severity levels that you were found disabled under back in the day when you were originally found disabled. The next form that we're going to be going over, and just so you know, the reason they use this form is because they're basically checking in every so often, could be 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, to see if you still should get a disability check or whether or not they're going to kick you off the program and make you go back to work. Now, over here, we have, that's another one, printer double printed. Over here, we have the SSA 3373. This is, in my opinion, the most, its relevance, right? The most relevance. It is the most relevant form that the Social Security claimant fills out when they are applying for disability benefits, that future adjudicators, DDS rep at the initial filing level, DDS rep at reconsideration level, ALJ at OHO, AAJ at OHO, this is the form that they use to pull evidence to claim you said you could do this, you said you could do that, you said you could do this, you said you could do that. The point of this form is that over here, they go through all of your functional tasks and abilities on a daily basis. So this focuses on why your impairments would limit your vocational and at-home experience. Okay, so let's go through some of the basic questions here. That way you get an understanding as to what's going on. Describe what you do from the time you wake up until you go to bed. Do you take care of pets or other animals? Do your illnesses, injuries, or conditions affect your sleep? Do you have any difficulty with shaving, bathing, or getting dressed? Do you have difficulty with preparing your own meals? Do you have difficulty with doing household chores? Do you have difficulty interacting with authority figures? Do you have, I could go through them all. But the point is, it outlines what you can or cannot do. And they use this to say, hey, you said you could do these things, or you said you couldn't do these things. So let's say somebody has a back problem and they say, okay, I've got a really bad back problem. I can only walk about 15 feet. And, I like to use a cane when I need one. Cool. So let's say they send out an investigator, and the investigator catches you walking 200 feet to your favorite local store. Well, they reference this SSA 3373, which, just so you guys have the official title of it, is the Adult Functional Report. Again, the Adult Functional Report. And this report basically goes through what you can or cannot do. So they use it as a gotcha form, especially with, these situations where, the claim will go in front of some fraud group or et cetera with the SSA, where they'll say, okay, well, you said this, but yet it appears from the video footage that we've collected against you that this is in fact true, that you could do much more. You could do this, et cetera. Okay. So the main thing that you have to kind of keep in mind is that this whole thing is set up to collect information about essentially your capacity to do functional tasks. And the reason for that is that it helps the SSA organize all of the things that they want to know about your abilities. Can you drive? Do you have any limitations with driving? Now, some of you will be like, yeah, I can drive. Do you pay for insurance? Do you own a car? Yeah, I own a car. You're going to pay insurance. And this is one of the things, I'm going to do a whole video on it. Many disabled people don't know how important cross-examination is at the Social Security disability hearing. So the judge will ask a question, do you have any limitations with cooking, cleaning, or laundry? And then the claimant will respond, for example, I have a little bit of a tough time pushing the vacuum, and I try to mostly use the microwave. And then that's it. And then they move on to the next grouping of questions. Now, inherent in that, you didn't talk about limitations with reaching up high and dusting, rolling carpets to get under them, moving furniture to get around them, having to do this, that, not being able to go ahead and stand by the stove, not being able to know when you've closed the refrigerator door, closed the cabinets. You've missed a massive opportunity to actually explain what's going on. And so one of the things that you kind of have to keep in mind with this whole structural existence is that this form is an early gotcha form. Because when you don't know what to say to the SSA, you just write down whatever stream of thought comes to your brain. So, for example, when they say, any changes in cooking habits since the illness, injuries, or conditions began, and you might put down, yes, I eat less, or yes, I don't make this meal as much as I used to. You don't explain why you don't. You don't explain the background, the understanding as to how you've changed and why it's relevant to your impairments, because you don't know. You don't know how to give testimony yet. You don't realize that the 3373 is a legal federal document for the rest of time. Okay, so that is this one. They'll send that out if they think you're a liar, because they want testimony from you outlining essentially what you do on a daily basis. All right, the next form that we're going to be going through is essentially the work activity report for a self-employed person. The work activity report for a self-employed person. This form right here is the SSA 820. The SSA 820, when this gets sent out, you almost always know that the claimant has at some point likely bullshitted the SSA. They've given them a spiel. They've given them, something here, something there. This form is all about you reporting to the SSA work activity that was self-employed. Okay. So, for example, if you're doing a side gig where you're earning some extra money and they catch you, or they catch video footage of you actually doing it, or they catch video footage of you getting payments for it, they will send out the work activity report. They're going to ask you essentially, what type of job functions are you doing? How much have you earned? What's going on? Right? Check if it's a farm. Check if it's sole owner, partnership, farm tenant, farm landlord. List any months in which you earn more than $200 or worked more than 40 hours in your business since the date shown in item number 1. It's basically a form to get you to testify and explain why you did not previously report on your SSA 3369, your work history report, this new job that you are currently doing or did recently. They also make this form a 21 and a work activity report for basically an employed person. That's where you didn't report a job where you're working for somebody else. But the more nefarious, the more scary ones are the 820s, the work activity report for the self-employed person, because that means they got and created a job that essentially, to be very clear, is not on the books usually. Okay. Now, the next one that I want to go through real quick over here. Okay. All right, over here. So this one tends to pop up because at the end of the day, the SSA is always looking at payees, how they're paying out the funds to those who are supposed to be disabled, and whether or not those funds are being used appropriately. Report for this form is SSA 7161. Again, SSA 7161. And please remember to like this video if you enjoy these videos where I show you what are the forms, how things work with the Social Security Administration. It is incredibly important that you like the videos, because at the end of the day, YouTube won't know to post them in shared searches if you don't do that. All right, over here. SSA 7161 OCR-SM 2023 edition. Report to the United States Social Security Administration by person receiving benefits for a child or for an adult unable to handle funds. Once again, a report to the United States Social Security Administration by person receiving benefits for a child or for an adult who are unable to handle funds. Okay, so we're talking payee stuff. Okay, let me read to you some of the questions on it so you know exactly what this form is about. Has anyone for whom you receive benefits changed his or her citizenship or country of residence in the past 15 months? Has anyone for whom you receive benefits married, had a divorce, or died in the past 15 months? Has the parent or any child for whom you receive benefits died, married, or had a divorce in the past 15 months? Did anyone for whom you receive benefits work for someone else or own a business or a farm in the past 15 months? Did any person for whom you receive benefits live apart from you during any of the past 15 months? They're checking to see if the funds are being used properly by the payee, or if the payee is just giving the person who claims to be unable, that the SSA claims is unable to handle funds, that the SSA is basically going ahead and checking in on whether the payee is properly using the funds, or if the person who is receiving the funds is doing a job or getting married, etc. Now, there is another form, but I can't show it to you at this point because unfortunately it's hidden information. That form, because it has social security numbers on it, I can't show it to you, is basically the notice from DDS about setting up a CEME appointment. If the SSA believes that you might in fact be a liar, the bottom line is this. They will go ahead, just to be very clear, and they will send you to a consultative examination medical appointment. They're sending you to their doctor so that you can go in front of their doctor and basically be seen for the impairments that you claim you have. The reason for this situation is that they are trying to, have a legal document that shows where you are physically or mentally at. Now, the doctors are usually made aware that you could be a BS artist because the doctors will be sent medical documentation and a query notification from the DDS rep. The query notification will usually have instructions on it to the doctor about the specific case. And in those instructions will usually be something about how you might not be a genuinely disabled or a genuine person meeting the requirements of the Social Security Administration's benefits. As a result of that, you will receive a notice to go to the CEME. You will take notice that when the SSA sends an investigator to follow you around, one of the main times that they follow you around when you're going through a CDR or applying for benefits is the day that you are basically going to the CDR. That individual will follow you around from before you leave your house to where you go after the CDR appointment, the SSA doctor's appointment. They'll follow you around for the rest of the day, collect information, and write up what's called an ROI report. These CEMEs are important because the SSA uses them to catch fakers, to catch liars. Now, a bonus sheet over here is SSA 7163, questionnaire about employment or self-employment outside of the United States. Some of you, right, you come from, South America. Some of you come from Europe. Some of you come from Africa. Some of you come from other places. And you move to the United States, you seek citizenship, you get it, but then you travel back to see family, and then all of a sudden you've got a side job over there, and yada, yada. I have seen CDI investigations where basically somebody has moved outside of the country and started to do side work, and then they come back to the United States. They do this because they are trying to hide the income that they have as a result of working in another country. The only kicker with that is that if the SSA figures it out, and this happens to veterans, it happens to all kinds of people, but veterans, this does pop up. What happens is, just so that you're aware, because remember, there's SGA for SSDI Title II benefits. What happens is, with this situation, they will receive this form in SSA 7163 asking about what type of work you are doing outside of the country. And when you receive that, you should immediately think, because you have just been caught. And maybe you'll sit there and say, I don't actually work, I don't do anything, but trust me, if they're sending you that form, they have some form of evidence. Otherwise, they're not going to be sending that out. When they send out that form, they think that you are a liar because they have potential evidence showing that you are working outside of the country. Okay? So just to summarize the forms that we've gone over so that everybody has a full understanding, for those people who just joined us, there's the SSA 827. It is a HIPAA. It allows the SSA to go and buy your records from different facilities, including medical facilities. There's the SSA 3373. The SSA 3373 is a statement form as to all the things you can or cannot do throughout the day, including vocational tasks, work tasks, and also at-home tasks. The SSA 7161 basically goes through, and here, let me show you that one because a lot of people don't know about that one. The SSA 7161 is the report to the United States. Well, here, let me read to you. Report to the United States Social Security Administration by a person receiving benefits for a child or for an adult who is unable to handle those benefits. The whole point of that is they're checking in on a payee to see if the payee is properly using those funds for the disabled or a person who is unable to handle their benefits. They could just be an older person too. They could be elderly. Okay. The next form is the SSA 820 form. The SSA 820 form, also not a common one that I think a lot of you guys are going to know about. That's basically where the SSA is asking you about self-employed work activity income. Okay, let me go over here. The self-employed work activity income, right, is about the SSA asking you, what type of job are you doing that is a self-employed position where you likely have not reported it to the IRS or the SSA, and they believe you might be earning money that could conflict with element 1 of the 5-step sequential process, which is, are you earning substantial gainful activity funds? Okay. Now, the next one is a form I can't show you, which is the consultative examination notice where the SSA will send you to the doctor. And basically, the SSA will send out a CDI unit to follow you around in a car or a van or a truck. And they will, before you get out to go to that appointment, follow you. And then they will follow you to where you go thereafter, whether you go to the grocery store, whether you go to the local, whatever this place, get your nails done, get your hair done, whatever. They will follow you around for the rest of the day. And the final form, the bonus form that we went over, was essentially a form for those individuals who work outside of the United States but have not reported that work to the United States. That is the SSA 7163. Many of you will not have to deal with that form, but it is a bonus document I added because there are people who leave this country, they go to another country, and they work and never report the income to the SSA. The Social Security Administration, through the United States government, never gets to go ahead and tax you. And as a result of that, they're sitting back going, hey, wait a minute, you might be getting benefits while not being in this country, while working in another country, which violates our rules and regulations. So I hope you enjoyed this video to give you a taste of some of the documents used when basically the Social Security Administration thinks that you might be a liar. This will help you understand what they're trying to do when they reach out to you. I am not in any way saying that any of you are a liar, although some of you that will watch this video are, and that's okay. You just, now have some information to understand what the SSA is doing and why they're doing it, okay? With that said, I will catch you a little bit later. Attorney Walter Hnot, please remember to hit that like button, like and subscribe. Head over to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm or Disability Resolution Florida. Throw that up there on Google. That way you can go ahead and put some stars if you want. I always love waking up to the 5 stars, but it's totally up to you. You get to make that choice. With that said, and I think it's very important, at the end of the day, if you need a private session, a 1-hour private session, there is a mini contract below in the bio. It's a simple, easy peasy contract, very simple to fill out. Also, additionally, with that said, I go live on Mondays and Thursdays. This Thursday, I will be going live to answer questions for free later tonight for the disabled community. I'll catch you a little bit later. You have a wonderful, wonderful day. Attorney Walter Hnot. We will rock and roll from there. Thank you so much, and we'll catch up soon. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody. Bye-bye.